Hey everybody, I'm Miguel Maravilla from FightNews.com and SouthernCaliforniaBoxing.com. The weekend is here. We had a good card yesterday, last night on ESPN. Four fights. We have that to talk about. We also have some notes to talk about, some camp notes, as well as some programming reminders for next week and some alerts on what's what's possibly next in the world of boxing. So let's go ahead and talk about yesterday's card on ESPN. So that was headlined by Jessie Magdaleno and Yenefiel Vicente, but we'll get back to that in a minute. For right now, let's talk about the co-feature between featherweight Adam Lopez and Luis Correa. That was as expected. That was as competitive as they come. Both fighters getting the opportunity to appear on TV, getting some TV time. You had Lopez, who was coming off a solid fight and taking on Valdez, and of course you have Correa, from the Robert Garcia stable. That stable is one of the most solid stables in boxing, and it was a competitive fight from the start. You had Correa that was applying all the pressure, as well as Lopez, who was boxing, being slick behind that jab. Then suddenly, around the fourth, fifth round, that's when Lopez appeared to have adjusted, using his jab very effectively. But the pressure just kept on, it just kept on coming from Correa. Uh, Towards the end of the fight, you see Lopez's eyes are shut. However, going into that final round, if that, of course, it was a pretty close, even fight. Going into that final round, I said, if if it's even and somebody needs to win this round, I would probably say, hey, whoever wins this final round will win the fight. And I thought that Lopez won that last round based on his uh, technique. He was landing the more straighter, more crisper punches, and that's why I gave him the 10th round. And sure enough, you have you have that final round that made the difference. And, on the scorecards, it was 96-94 for Lopez, and then it was even on the others. So a very competitive fight indeed. So best of luck to both guys. We look forward to having them soon. Let's see when they return. Then you had a bantamweight prospect, Gabriel Murataya, out of Fontana in the Inland Empire. Yes, he's a preschool teacher, and he came out and made quick work of Fernando Robles, knocking him out in one round. That was a good showing. You know, good thing for Murataya, because again, one of these fighters that has the opportunity to fight on TV, and he made the most of it. Made quick work. It was exciting. It was an exciting knockout, and then the fact that he's a preschool teacher just gives him that exposure. I'm sure he made a lot of his students proud, and I'm sure he's a great mentor as a preschool teacher and of course as a boxer. So I wouldn't be surprised later down the line, years from now, we're talking about a world champion. We're talking about a fighter uh, that's fighting in his first world title fight, whatever the case is. To say he was inspired by his preschool teacher, hey, you never know. So quote me on that if that ever comes about. And then you had the two California lightweights, Eric Mondragon, 3-0-1 with two knockouts, and then you had Mike Sanchez, 6-0 and 1 with two knockouts. Both came out making statements in the opening round. They exchanged knockdowns. Of course, Sanchez scored the first knockdown, and then Murataya returned the favor by landing a solid punch. And after that, it was pretty much even. After that, they ended up fighting to a draw. So hey, maybe we'll see them fight down the line for a title or something. Maybe we will see them years from now talking about this first fight as they fought to a draw. So you never know. If I'm matchmaker, I don't think there's a need at matching them up against each other. They're both evenly matched. Maybe you have something in both of them later in the future. So we shall see. And then the main event, yes, Jesse Magdaleno ended up winning by disqualification. It was a it was a dominating fight, but it was an ugly fight, very rough and tough fight on the part of Vicente. He just just made it difficult for the former world champion Magdaleno. The Dominican fighters always bring that tough, awkward style. If they just they always represent problems in the ring. They make it tough for anybody. But it was one of those wins where Magdaleno got the rounds in, he got the work in. However, it was just um, it was a tough one in the process. It wasn't easy. Let's just put it that even though he was wide ahead on the scorecards, I mean, hey, those low blows take a toll on you. The fact that Vicente was just wouldn't go away is what made it more difficult. But props to Magdaleno. He's on a path to regaining a world title. He wants another title shot at featherweight. Uh, he became the mandatory for, I believe, Gary Russell Jr.'s WBC. And you also have Shakur Stevenson, who's a top ranked stablemate. So at the end, of course, Magdaleno was quoted. I believe he said, "I don't give a shit either one of them." He wanted, he doesn't care. He wants his world title shot. He doesn't care against who, but he wants to be champion once again. Then some camp notes from San Diego as Giovanni Santillan. He will be in the co-feature next week on Tuesday. He'll be taking on former world champion Antonio DeMarco. That's pretty much a big step up for the welterweight prospect Santillan. DeMarco himself has been in against some of the best. He was in against the late Edwin Valero. He was in against Jorge Linares. He has been in against Adrian Broner. He's been in against Jesse Vargas. The list goes on and on. So this is a very good test for Santillan. Santillan out of San Diego, California. He has a former welterweight uh, world title challenger, Danny TNT Perez. Perez, he actually challenged Antonio Margarito for the WBO welterweight title back in 2002, I believe. 2000, yeah, back in 2002. So, you know, good luck to Santillan. We shall see what he's made out of. Santillan, he's co-promoted by Thompson Boxing and Top Rank Promotions. So best of luck to Santillan. And then of course, speaking of Thompson Boxing is adamant that they'll be back in July. In July, yes, they'll be hopefully having one of their shows. Uh, that's for the month of July. They're expected to return. We look forward to them coming back. Check out their video on YouTube, 321 coming in July. And then we move on to next week. Next week we have Tuesday. You have, of course, Joshua Greer taking on Mike Plania. Greer 22 1-1 with 12 knockouts. Plania 23-1 with 12 knockouts. That'll be a 10 rounds in the bantamweight division. So this is a good step up for both of these fighters, for Greer and Plania. You have Greer out of Chicago, who's looking to make a name for himself. He wants to become one of the best bantamweights out there. And Plania, who's looking to make a splash here in the U.S., as many Filipino fighters have in the past, will look to take advantage of this opportunity. And as I mentioned, the co-feature Antonio DeMarco and Giovanni Santillan. Then you have super middleweight Nicolas Sekniashvili, 5-0 with 4 knockouts. He'll be taking on Isaiah Jones. And then you have DFW's super featherweight Edward Vasquez, DFW Dallas Fort Worth. He'll be taking on an opponent to be determined. And then also you have heavyweight Hector Perez taking on Juan Torres of Texas. So that takes place next Tuesday. That should be a pretty good card on Tuesday, June 16th. at the MGM Grand live on ESPN. So that does it. We will have a preview on Tuesday. So again, check back on here on Tuesday. We will have the predictions and of course the preview and whatever news transpires from here till the weekend. So until then, I'm Miguel Maravilla. Follow on Twitter at Mig Maravilla. Also, for the latest boxing news, information, you name it, log on to fightnews.com and southerncaliforniaboxing.com. So, we will see you next time. Have a good weekend. Take care.